Hello, good evening. Thank you, Brianna. Good evening. I'm Gail Schickley, and welcome to Solo Arts Heal, where we bring you shows each month born from the art of storytelling. My light seems to be very dim here, so something has happened there. But I'll just press on here. Each month, we bring you shows born from the art of storytelling and performance at the intersection of education and advocacy about health and healing. And shows embrace the healing power of the arts over a wide range of mental, emotional, and physical challenges, and with talkbacks that offer insights and resources for our audiences. This has grown to include issues of social and environmental justice, with the recognition that how we treat one another and how we treat our planet is all connected. Did you know that each year in the US alone, 240,000 cases of breast cancer are diagnosed in women and 2,100 cases in men? Tonight, for Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we featured journalist Anne DiNocenzio with excerpts from her play, Red Light Zones, that speaks to her struggles with breast cancer amid other life challenges that she'll share with us, challenges that she's faced along the way. Let me tell you about our guest performer. Anne DiNocenzio is a national business writer for one of the world's largest news organizations. When not reporting, Anne loves to play piano and go to museums and theater in New York City, where she makes her home. She performed at the new talent shows at Caroline's on Broadway before the pandemic, riffing about her overprotective Italian Catholic mother and her family. The premise of the Red Light Zones was first workshopped in early 2017 at Go Solar Workshop in Manhattan with instructor Christine R. Miller. A serious health diagnosis forced Anne to pull out of the workshop, and she later recast and expanded her show, and in October 2022 performed her full-length 60-minute play at Theater Lab, dedicated to innovative theater in Manhattan. We'll be sharing two segments of Red Light Zones tonight, beginning with the piece that sets up Anne's autobiographical solo show that follows a naively innocent girl from an overly protective Catholic Italian family through various losses in her life. The first piece is 11 minutes, and afterwards, Anne will join us for a talk back and then to set up our second piece segment. We'll talk between. So right now, please join me in welcoming the first segment. Brianna, if you would play, and I'll see you in 11 minutes.
My name is Anne DiNocenzio. That's Italian for of innocence. That's right, of innocence. When your last name is of innocence, it kind of seals your fate. You can't go walking down the street with a plunging neckline or stilettos. DiNocenzio in Italy is DiNocenzio. Too bad my classmates in high school used to mutilate it. Hey, DiNozio. Dino. Okay. I grew up in an overly protected Italian Catholic family. My mother, who went to an all-women's college in a place called Common Station, made me and my sister wear clothes befitting a nun. She taught us a very valuable lesson.
Now, Anne-Marie, there are certain red light zones that boys can't touch. They can't touch this, they can't touch this, and they can't touch this. And you can't get boys excited. They have uncontrollable urges. You wind up pregnant. Your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit.
I was 5. We prayed all the time. I have a funny feeling that my mother's ultimate prayer was this.
Hail Mary, full of grace, Lord is with thee. Please don't let my daughters get double G's like my mother-in-law, the Chia. It worked.
Compared to my sister and brother, I was the one that took my last name to heart. I owned the word innocence, whether I liked it or not. I was more like Amelia Bedelia, you know, the famous character in the popular children's book series. She takes things literally. When asked to draw the drape, she actually pulls out a sketch pad and draws them. That was me. As for the birds and the bees, I was a little confused. One day, when I was 8 years old, I asked my mom a question about sex. We were driving. Mom, where do babies come from?
When a man gets close to a woman.
What does that mean?
Just don't get close to a boy. You'll wind up pregnant.
She handed me a book called Take the High Road, written by a Catholic priest. Very interesting book. What is lust? Lust is desire gone out of control, the desire for that which you cannot have. In comparison, my friends with liberal parents. Okay, sex with ourselves. It is a special way of enjoying ourselves. It allows us the time and space to explore and experiment with our own bodies. Well, there was no experimenting with this body. I was the good girl and afraid to be anything else like Julie Jake down the street. Julie got pregnant and had to leave home and have the baby. There was no way that I had the God Almighty rain down on me, that angry God that would wake me up in the middle of the night.
If you live in according to the flesh, you must die. Die. In other words, don't be a Corva.
The fear of God even haunted my parents. Otherwise, they would have been looser with the rules. I wanted my parents to be cool and even liberal, like the Higgins next door. Oh, the Higgins. I love the Higgins. He had a beard. He was a big protester. Yeah, we're gonna march for the environment in DC, then we're gonna go back to New York and march for women's equality. They went to outdoor rallies, and they were rooting for McGovern. My parents went to Mozart, and they were rooting for Nixon as he was going down, down, down. The Higgins had a daughter named Blossom. So Blossom had these cool shoes called Corkies. You know, they were all the rage in the 70s. They were the tan wedge sandals. She would walk down the street. I love my shoes. I was buying her. I wanted them. Instead, my mother got me loafers.
Now, Anne-Marie, loafers are in. Those buffalo shoes are too risky. No need to wear heels your age. When you're 60, your back will be crooked and you're walking like this. Loafers are not in, okay? Where do you see them? I don't see them. Trust me, there'll be a big trend.
My mother was right. Loafers were in. 10 years later, with the preppy movement, it always failed. I always was afraid of being an independent teen. But one day, when I got to senior year, I was going to make a bold move. I was going to be a bad girl. I decided to cut class on senior cut day. Okay. No big deal for most people, right? No big deal for my sister or brother. Different story for me. I was cool and calm, hanging at the Jersey Shore with my friends. And all of a sudden, Catholic guilt came over me. Oh my God, I think we're gonna get caught. This could show up on our permanent record. That beer, that's alcohol, we're gonna get arrested. And we didn't frickin' calm down. What are you gonna do? Tell the principal? Principal Flinty, I wasn't sick yesterday. I cut class. I'm really sorry. What? Saturday school? But I confessed. I was surrounded by the potheads and the greasers. One greaser named Vinnie Manamucci, black leather jacket and slick black hair, came over to check me out.
Yo, you go to this school, you don't look familiar. You look like a good girl. I love good girls. What's that book you're reading? Don't look like English to me.
It's Shakespeare! It's Shakespeare! Ugh. Okay. You might find it hard to believe that I ended up at the very, very liberal Smith College. The birthplace of the feminist movement that counted graduates like Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem. The car was packed with my favorite belongings. Straight-leg corduroy jeans, striped sweaters, Docksiders, and my favorite albums. Linda Ronstadt, Saturday Night Fever, and Barry Manilow. Okay, at the time, I didn't know that these albums were just not cool, but I knew this was going to be a turning point for me. On the first day of college, I saw these women. Cool women. They came without their parents. They came by train and plane. I fell into the loser camp. My parents would have moved into my dorm room and stayed there for a month if I didn't kick them out. I saw these women with preppy, sophisticated looks. Then I saw women with pink hair. I heard music down the hall. Because the night belongs to lovers. There were women with leather pants. It was called punk rock. I decided I was done with my old Jew. I wanted a new look. Pink, spiky. I called Sylvia, my hairdresser from New Jersey, to get that new look. No. Anna Maria, your pot is widening. You're losing your hair. I gotta cut it off and make it nice and short. What are you talking about? I'm only 18. How could I be losing my hair? But he was right. My part was winding. I was losing my hair. Forget about that new look I wanted. So long being cool.
Now, Anne-Marie, I know just the right dermatologist for you. His name is Dr. McGone.
Let me look at your scalp. Shine a bright lamp on your scalp and give you a shot of iodine.
Which one is that? You look so much alike. Mom, that guy's a freak. He's 100 years old and he's a clown.
Anne-Marie, the ants have been going in for years. He's well known in Newark, New Jersey.
Thank you. Thank you. It's quite a setup in terms of the things that you had to face with your, here we are. Anne, thank you for joining us. And thank you for that first piece. It's very funny because I know you originally workshopped that at Caroline's on Broadway, didn't you?
Yeah, some of that, especially the there was some stuff from college, and also the book. I have the Take the High Road. You know, I
Oh
riffed on
yes,
that.
let's see that. Let's see that book.
Sure. This is the book. It's written by from a Catholic priest. So this was my handbook. Didn't really serve me well, but yes. Yeah, some
You
of
had
it
another book as well, didn't you?
Oh, sure. And this is from the 70s.
And when you went to
This is-
college, you were introduced to that.
Right, but
New
all my
world.
friends had, like, my parents would never give me this book, so my friends had this book. So yeah.
That's great. Well, so it was you were very kind of sheltered by your mother, by your mother and father, I suppose, and causing a lot of anxiety. Do you think these things kind of had something to do with the later diagnoses and contributed in any way to your cancer?
No, I don't think that. I think it was, I just think I was just brought up in an overly protective family. And I don't think it had anything to do with my diagnosis. I think it was just the way of how I just protected myself. I didn't, so there were, I think I was just very innocent and, I think it was like, for instance, if I was 15 minutes late from coming home from school, my parents would have probably called the police. It was just like that.
So causing a lot of anxiety, I guess
Yeah,
that's what I
so
meant.
yeah,
We
I
all
mean,
have a
I
lot of
probably had a
anxiety in
little
our
bit
lives.
anxiety, a little bit. Just because I wanted to be the good girl. And there was a lot of pressure from my parents, but it was good, that you had to be the good girl and you had to behave a certain way. But it was, but it was also living in a world of, trying to protect yourself,
Sure.
and yeah.
Well, it sounded like your good humor kept you in check all the time.
Yes, and then I had great material later on. I had no idea when I was young that this could be material for, later on. I mean, my mom, as as I said in the show, that she went to an all women's Catholic college, and in a place called Convent Station. So she used to always, those red light zones were the thing that she taught me. You can't touch this, you can't touch that. That was something that was ingrained in me when I was growing up. Yeah.
Now you became a journalist, a national retail writer for a major press organization, and working in a very serious, but you decided to do some stand up and which really had a lot of levity and fun about looking back at your past. And it was during that time that you received your diagnosis. Is that right?
Right. Right.
Now, you also had things going on in your life that were, did you already know about your situation in terms of having children? Is that?
Yeah. So what happened was, there were, before my diagnosis for breast cancer, and I had various losses like everyone has, and various challenges like everyone has. And when I was in college, I lost a good part of my hair, and it was really because I was anxious about my brother. And my brother was, was doing really well. And then he was diagnosed, he had to leave college, and he had schizophrenia. He was diagnosed later with schizophrenia. So he was very ill for 4 years. And I think that, contributed, for me, I think it was, I was really worried. I was anxious. And I think that's when I started losing my hair. And unfortunately, he passed away. I was 19 and he was 23. So he was in and out of mental health hospitals. It was like a freak, a tragic accident. Yeah. And so that was that. And then, that was a big loss. And then when I was in my 30s, I was always thinking about having children, but always scared that maybe I would pass on this mental illness gene to my kids. So I was always scared about that. And then that decision was made for me when I was diagnosed with this condition called premature ovarian failure, which I never heard of, but it's when your ovaries just stop working. So, all of a sudden my period and just stopped working. And so I was diagnosed with that. So so 35. And, my doctor had said, you probably wouldn't have been able to have kids even in your early 30s, just because, you lose your fertility. The fertility was getting, it was diminishing. And then all of a sudden you lost your, that. So that was kind of
This was an isolated thing for you too. It wasn't mental illness in your family. This was isolated with your brother and
yes, right. Like my mom, it wasn't something, right. So schizophrenia was not in my family, and it's a very serious illness. And at the time in the 70s, no one talked about it. So you just didn't talk about it really to your friends or your other, my mom was very protective. She only talked to maybe one or two, her sister and brother, and we were just, that was like our nucleus. My sister, of course, my sister is, and she's lives in Massachusetts, very close, but we didn't talk to a lot of people. And this was before the internet. You were very much alone in this,
That puts a lot of stress on. And I think it does help to be able to talk to people about it and sometimes have therapists and so on. And one of the things that we would probably encourage in this show and in something that we learn, because we all go through these stresses in life. So it must have been a very difficult time for you going through all of that. And then in the midst of all of this, and after all of this, you get this diagnosis.
Yes. So I was healthy, and I was doing my show. I was doing stand up, and then I thought, oh, let me do a solo show, because people thought, you have so much good material, but I can also be serious, because I thought maybe I should do a story just about my overprotective Italian Catholic family, and then talk about the various losses I had in my life. And just how I protected myself, and then I was in this solo show, and I just did a routine mammogram, and then I was diagnosed with this very aggressive breast cancer. And so I decided to leave the workshop and then come back a year later to recast it. I just needed time to do chemo and radiation and everything else.
So would you like to talk about that now, or should we see this other segment first?
Yes,
and
definitely.
talk about more about the cancer. Okay. You want to set up this second segment?
Sure. So the second segment is my diagnosis. It starts off with I'm diagnosed with breast cancer. And then it's just the journey that I have, because and we'll talk a bit later in the next segment, just about all the things that I learned about breast cancer. There are a lot of myths, around this disease.
Absolutely. So this next segment, Brianna will play, and it's about 12 minutes. And I'll see you after that. Thank you.
My mom can spot anything that's wrong with me. She can see through my coat and spot a kidney stone.
Anne-Marie, I think you gained weight. Let me look at your teeth. You need another cleaning. When was your last physical?
But my mom didn't spot the malignant tumors growing on one of my red lysomes. No. Nurse Jane in a mammogram found those. Wait.
How many do I have? It's not just one? When was my last mammogram? Last year. I go every year. I want to see the radiologist.
The doctor called me on February 28th, 2017.
I'm sorry to tell you, but you have breast cancer.
Soon after, I found out I had triple negative breast cancer, or TNBC. I never heard of it before. I thought it was some new news channel on a cable network I never heard of. It turns out there's more than one type of breast cancer, and this one is more rare, more resistant, and more aggressive than other types of cancer. I couldn't look up anything to do with TNBC. I couldn't. It was so overwhelming. So I told the doctor, I'll do whatever it takes. Bring it on.
So for the first 2 months of chemo, you'll have adriamycin. The nickname for that is Adria. For Adria, here's the list of side effects. Okay, we've got itching, red rash, nausea, vomiting, decrease in blood cell count. You'll probably lose your hair. Damage to heart muscle can occur as well. Cytoxin, hair loss, headache, nasal stuffiness.
Make it stop. Hair loss was like being 18 all over again. But this time I was going to lose all my hair. I'm not strong enough for this. I've been protected and I can't do this. Then the gifts came. The prayer shawls, the prayer quilts. I got pink shirts that said, "Fight like a girl." I got piles and piles of helpful cancer books. I got pink necklaces and pink shoes. Pink, pink, pink. All this made me feel good and loved. My sister became CEO of Team Ann. She even ordered Team Ann t-shirts. Yes. There are 3 openings for Ann's chemo in the next 2 weeks. I will create a spreadsheet to figure out who goes where. And my mother, she had me on every prayer chain in the Catholic Church and the synagogue. I needed all of it. I didn't care. You know, I was terrified of everything. And cancer made me, just freaked me out. My hair started falling out, and by week 4, I was bald. So I got a wig from Russia. Silk and smooth. Do you want to see it? This is it. I love this wig. Okay. So it's like a permanent blowout. It looks better when I was bald. But anyway, so I walk down the street. A friend of mine sees me. Oh my God, new do? Yes. I'm at my high school reunion. I bump into a popular classmate. Who is your stylist? I'm so sorry. She's from Russia and she's moving back to the mother country. I had to do this because without my wig, I looked scary. So, almost over? No. A month after what I thought would be my last chemo, I got a call from the doctor saying, okay, it's time for your surgery, a double mastectomy. Doctor gave me some options, or I could just go flat.
Welcome to Build-A-Boob. You can build your boob any way you like. Trending now, gap flap. Take that fat from your butt and put it in your boobs. Pesky thunder thighs? Try tug flap and get the slim thighs and voluptuous breasts you've always wanted. And don't forget about deep flap. That's D-I-E-P, but you will go D-E-E-P into that tummy. Ready to get started on your new body? Build-A-Boob is here for you.
Excuse me, I have a question. What happens if the surgery's not successful?
Welcome to Build-A-Boob. You can build your boob any way you like. Trending now.
Okay, so I went for deep flap. That's where they take stomach fat and build boobs. I got 2 new red light zones. Oh, and the surgeon fixed a hernia. So, in retail terms, I got a threefer. So, some might wonder why you got a frivolous boob job. But it's not a frivolous boob job. It's a cancer operation that was meant to preserve my femininity. My ovaries shrunk to raisins. I couldn't have children, and cancer made me feel broken. So, reconstructing my breasts made me feel like I was still a woman in my own body. 2 weeks after my reconstruction, I got a call from the doctor.
So there was still residual disease when you had surgery. You'll need daily radiation and another month of IV chemo. Then you need another 7 months of a chemo pill called Xeloda. The goal is to reduce the recurrence rate, which is high, unfortunately.
Wait, I just had 4 months of that poison. I wore a pink hat. I spent $3,000 on a wig from Russia. My veins are bruised, and now I have to be chemified twice and then radiated? Am I going to be okay? The doctor couldn't say anything. So I called Xeloda Xanadu. Xanadu, Xanadu. Oh, and Xanadu erases my fingerprints. Time to commit a crime. Body, here I come. Oh, and I tossed my modesty out the window and became a stripper. Every time I would go to the surgeon's office, I always had to expose my red light zone, so it became so natural. I'm at the dermatologist. Check out these moles. I'm at the dentist. What about these fillings? I'm at the ophthalmologist. Check out this vision test. Hello? Oh, hi, Doc. I'm doing great. Yeah. I'm sure you have good news for me. What? My tumor markers spiked? You know, I can't even catch a break. And what am I going to tell my mom? I was brave. There's so many women who can't go to the mammograms or annual mammograms without taking anti-anxiety pills. Say her moves in the machine. And let's discuss the Pink Ribbon Campaign and all the pinkification of breast cancer. Pink hats, pink t-shirts, pink purses. Oh, and the Empire State Building turns pink for October Awareness Month. All this freaking pink campaigns makes it look like pink is a picnic. Cancer is a picnic. It's not. I hate pink. Women are dying. 1 in 3 women who are diagnosed with early stage breast cancer see their disease metastasize. Save the tatas? I hate that phrase. Save the woman. You know, I'm so freaking disgusted with myself. For all these years, I was consumed with fear, afraid of taking risks. But protecting yourself didn't keep me from getting cancer. You can protect yourself all you want, but bad things happen. So I should have been a badass. So today, starting today, I put the blame on myself. I was the one at the wheel. I was the one in control. I shouldn't have listened to anyone else.
Hey, you're acting like a Meshuggah. You need to calm down. Stress isn't good for you. You know, you really can't be hard on yourself or others.
I know, but I have so many regrets.
Well, you're still alive, aren't you? So what are you going to do about it?
I had the scans. I waited 4 days. I was okay. But at this moment, I realized that this wasn't going away. Life is precious, and I needed to embrace it. So I don't just cook. I'm frickin' Julia Child. Today we're going to make beef bourguignon. Maybe I'll take a sabbatical, take a trip around the world. York. I love New York. I first hid behind my innocence at the beginning of my diagnosis. Okay, I hid behind it my whole life. But luckily, I found something magical about it. That if I let my innocence go, I'd be okay. In fact, I'd be more than okay, because underneath the terror and the panic is a confident and strong woman who's not afraid to strip, play the piano, and get on a stage in New York. My focus to stay healthy, even as I take meds to keep cancer from coming back, has shown me that I am no longer fearful. My name is Angela Senzio, and I am fearless.
Wonderful, Anne. I
Thank
love
you.
how just from the first to the second part of the show, that you really see you're the confidence that builds in you, and how that really made you come out. I also want to give a shout out to your director. You want to?
Oh, she's great. I met Christine Miller through this Go Solo workshop back in 2017, and I worked with her for just a couple months, and then I had to leave because of the chemo and dealing with breast cancer. Then I came back, and I've been working with her ever since.
That's
So
lovely.
yeah.
So through this, I mean, you really are teaching people about breast cancer, and because also doing talkbacks like this, there's a lot of awareness about breast cancer, but a lot of people aren't educated in the disease. What are the big myths about breast cancer? What did you learn personally as you went through your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I thought I knew when I was diagnosed, I knew of people who had breast cancer. It wasn't in my family. But there were so many things that I just learned. The first one is they're all different types of breast cancer. I just thought there was one. And I had, there's inflammatory breast cancer. There's hormone receptive is the most common. I had triple negative breast cancer, which is one of the most aggressive ones. And so
what stage were you when you were diagnosed?
It was early stage, and I'll tell you more, even though it's early stage, with triple negative, it wasn't in my lymph nodes, but I needed chemo because it's a very, very aggressive breast cancer, and it's more resistant to chemo. It's rare. It's about 10 to 15% of all breast cancers are triple negative, and it's very aggressive. So even if it's early stage, and it's much higher recurrence rate. And the other thing I found out so there's different types of breast cancer, different treatments, different chemo treatments. The other one is that, 30%, roughly about 30% of women who are diagnosed with early stage breast cancer, which is stage 1, stage 2, eventually see their disease metastasize. I had no idea. And as I was going through this, I had to stop looking at Facebook because I would see women who were like my stage, early breast cancer, triple negative, that would be in the middle of doing chemo, and went to their brain, or they had just finished chemo and a couple minutes later it went to their bones. So I felt everyone has a story, and I needed to kind of calm myself. And I think I used humor, actually. I used humor to kind of keep me kind of upbeat because I was working. I was, working every day, and I had to keep going. And my mother was also like, she was, that overprotective mother, but she was one of those things, like she was one of those people she was my support, but she was also, yeah, she was like, get up and do it. I remember calling her and crying a bit, and she's like, don't cry, you need to work. So, and I'll tell you a little more about that. But, so that was, so triple negative is, there's no targeted treatment. And then the other is that, just because you remove your breast doesn't mean, oh, cancer, you're cured, because it can be in your bones, it can be in the bloodstream. And, you might think, well,
cancers only go to certain parts of the body. So
yeah, well, breast cancer goes to and can go to the bone, brain, lung. So it was, going through, it was scary because I'm thinking, I had this aggressive breast cancer, and it didn't matter if it's early stage. It didn't, matter. And then the other thing is, you can get a mammogram. I was so good about getting a mammogram every year. But I got a mammogram every year. I thought, oh, get a mammogram every year. I'll just need, if I'm diagnosed with breast cancer, I'll just have radiation. But, it was so aggressive. And the other thing is that, getting back to early stage breast cancer, the reason, what happens is you can be treated, it's early stage, it's not in your lymph node, but there could be rogue cells that are undetected, in your bloodstream. You have no idea, and they could be dormant for a long time. They could clump together in 6 months or a year, and then it goes to,
Oh boy,
it
and
goes
you're
to work.
scaring me. I mean, what can you do to make sure that you're safe? If you have your regular annual mammogram,
Yeah,
is
so
one thing.
so I mean, you have to do, every year, really, mammogram saves lives. Mammograms do save lives. If I didn't have my mammogram, and if I had waited 3 years, it would have been
Yeah.
all over. But
So
the other thing,
mammograms and also obesity and alcohol use, those affect breast cancer, isn't that true?
right. So, I
Mhm.
mean, try to, I was never like a big alcohol drinker or anything like that. And breast cancer wasn't in my family. So my mom had colon cancer, and when in her 70s. So I was always making sure I had my colonoscopy. I had my mammogram. I went for my regular, and this came up. Um, and the other thing I wanted to say is that, because there's no targeted treatment for triple negative, they do chemo first to see if it works. So when I had the chemo, then I had the breast surgery. They saw residual. So the chemo didn't kill all the cancer. So then I needed more chemo, and I was on this drug called Zolota. It was an oral chemo pill. And then I was on another experimental drug that was a copper depleting pill. So they're trying all kinds of things for triple negative because there isn't a targeted treatment at this point.
Right, right. Yeah, things are always changing in the pharmaceutical industry. We
Right.
really are. Yeah. And another thing is the current healthcare system. As you went through your cancer journey, you had good health insurance and you had a job that you could work from home when you weren't feeling well. Those were definite support that you had, which was extremely helpful, because for some people, if you don't have those situations, it can be more of a hardship. You were
Yeah. Yes. And I've always, as a journalist, I'm always looking at inequities, and I'm a national business writer, and I couldn't, there were so many people who had jobs that didn't have good health insurance. Like, I was on these Facebook sites, and some people were waiting to get just waiting for insurance to pay for their basic chemo or radiation, or people in rural areas had to drive 2 hours
yeah.
to get chemo. And I had the best, when you think, like, that is one of the things to fight against it, right? Triple negative. I know people who were misdiagnosed and and the doctor said, oh, you just have the garden variety kind. They were misdiagnosed.
So getting a second opinion is a good idea as well.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very good. And you also something interesting when we were talking earlier, you talked about you became aware of racial disparities in breast cancer treatment.
Yeah, so triple negative it's interesting with triple negative, it's disproportionately strikes women of African, or of color, women of color. I did not know that. But overall, there is, women of color die, especially particularly Black women, are more affected, and their odds are not as
Because
good.
Black women are
And
twice as likely as women of other racial and
right,
ethnic groups in the
exactly.
US to be diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer.
Right. And there are groups now. There's this one woman named Ricky Fairley who is, she had breast cancer. She's a Black woman. Was an executive in marketing, and she started this group a couple of years ago, and she's going around the country and actually doing trials with Black women, because really not as many trials for Black women. Like, right, if I'm white,
This is
my
something
body's different. So and you know, as you know, there's racial inequities in the healthcare system. So in the breast cancer system, it's like that. So I got to know all of that as well. Mhm.
Boy. It's interesting, the segment that you do talking about where you're going. Well, first of all, whether you're going to be flat chested. I mean, I know people and friends that have just decided not to, to have any augmentation. And yet there's a lot of, that's a very, funny segment that you do showing about whether you want to take it from your bottom, your belly, or your wherever. But you decided to go with the tummy tuck, the DIEP, which stands for deep inferior epigastric perforator, I think.
Yeah, I think so. I forgot that
Yeah.
what it stood for.
Epigastric, that's what it is, perforator. So
Yeah,
deep inferior. So anyway, DIEP, because it's known for
Definitely.
the artery that runs through your abdomen or the lower belly, and the procedure is designed to have fewer side effects and more natural results. Is that right?
Yeah, and what happened with me is one of my best friends was diagnosed with breast cancer 2 years before I was diagnosed with breast cancer. It was actually her second time, and she's great now, but it was still early stage. She needed radiation the first time. The next time they said you need reconstruction. She was the one that had deep flap, and it was her that I had no idea what that was until she had it. And then when I was going through it, at first I thought, I don't know if I want to go through all this. But then I realized if I get, an implant, I have this implant for, for 10 years, and you have to get a new one. And I just thought, you know what, let's just do this 13-hour surgery. And you have to get a very good one. You can't just get like the doctor has to be a microsurgeon because it's very complicated. It's a 13-hour surgery. So
But it's not uncommon, though, is it?
It's getting more and more common. It's not majority of it, but it's getting more and more popular now. It started, I think, so maybe like 10 years ago, but it's getting more and more popular. My surgeon was the one that was pushing it. He said, you are a good candidate. And so, he said that. And, young people.
It's designed to have fewer side effects and more natural results, I believe.
Right. And so I didn't have to have, I'm fine, like I decided, you can, I mean, it's a long recovery. It's good 6-week recovery. But I decided to go that route. But there's choices. People can go flat, people can do breast implants, they can do deep flap. And I didn't realize all of that. They can just have a lobectomy. But I think everyone, like women, should be supporting everyone, like I know women who are young women who decided I would just go flat. They're older women, they're 65, 70, who decided to do the reconstruction, and so it's a choice that women have. And
some people feel it preserves their femininity, as you mentioned when we talked earlier. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I decided I felt, everyone's different. So everyone, I support everyone and every choice. I didn't really think about being flat chested just because I just felt like for me, I wanted to be whole again. And I decided that I wanted the reconstruction, and I'm so happy. But obviously you need a good one because you go on the internet and there are some scary photos of people who have botched jobs in reconstruction. It's quite scary.
Any reconstruction surgery. I think that's probably true. You want to make sure you have
and if you have a botched job, you have to keep, like you go to another doctor and then you have to have all these different surgeries. But that's another thing I've learned too,
Well, good. Well, we certainly want to encourage women that have to face this, unfortunate circumstance of breast cancer, that they do have safe options out there, and just make sure you have a doctor that has had some experience in
right,
doing what you need to have done. And you say you met a lot of amazing survivors that have become advocates, and have written books and even designed bras for women who had breast operations. There's blogs and podcasts, women helping, feel good about themselves. And how do you play or want to play a role as an advocate? Tell me a little bit about these women you spoke of earlier, and how you want to play, what role you would like to play.
Yeah. So through my journey, I've met so many people. I've also gotten involved in the Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation, which is a rather young group, because triple negative breast cancer really, they didn't even know what it was, 20 years ago. But I've met so many women through groups, breast cancer groups. There's this one woman named Melissa Berry. She's a 10-year triple negative breast cancer survivor, and she has a podcast called Dear Cancer, I'm Beautiful. And it's all about, tips and, advice. And she interviews different people, whether it's reconstruction surgeons to beauty consultants, just about like, how do you feel good, and how do you look good and how do you feel good while you're going through chemo, but beyond that, because there's a lot of side effects and things that linger, whether it's rigidity in your build, your body, or dry skin. There's a lot that kind of lingers. So that's that. And then there are women, there's a woman behind it's called Ano Ono, and she it's the lingerie, and it's Dana Donofree is the designer, and she is the CEO of the company. And she designs bras for people who are, have one breast, both like reconstructed breasts, because when you have, like, my breasts are very, like, their stomach, I mean, it's a very kind of thick breast because it's from the stomach. But she has this amazing line, and it's online. And
There's a lot of options for various
right. And
a
there's
lot of really
people
good advocates for
right
for
makeup.
support.
So for me, I've been really helping a lot of people. Since I was diagnosed, it's just like every time I turn around, there's somebody else being diagnosed. So I've really help people, tell them what's going on, tell them what to do. I brought my friends who were diagnosed to get a wig. I'm, so, and then I've written articles, as well, about, I wrote an article about, some of the breast cancer advocates and their this whole cottage industry.
Wonderful.
I've also,
We've posted some things in our chat also for people can understand about the Black Breast Cancer Alliance and Triple Negative Breast Cancer Foundation. And those are useful for our audience, I hope, to be able to look further into all of this. We only have a few minutes left, and I want to mention your mom, because when we first talked, your mom had just died, and I know she was your muse for comedy and your solo show, and she passed away in February. How did she influence you? I mean, we see this in the show, of course, but how has her passing impacted your life, and what you plan to do with your plans for the show?
Okay, let me just
I'm sorry.
so it's okay. My mom was like my big support system, and she was always telling me, express yourself and write and act and the whole thing. So anyway, and she was always, and she, my mom had a lot of loss. Like she lost her son. She had to deal with cancer. And then when I got cancer, I was scared to tell her, because
Sure.
she had lost a son, but she ended up being my support system. I mean, she was like tough love, like, you get up and you go to work and you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. So I did this show, and she knew, like, she had I had her blessing for the show, including my just the story about my brother. She was like, it's okay, you can tell it. And she was happy that I could share the story, because as you know, mental illness is in the spotlight, now more than ever. So she was okay with it. And she came to my readings, and she came to the show in November, and she hugged me at the end, and she was so happy. And a month later, she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and passed away in February. So right now, I don't want to let this show go. And I really would love to start working on festivals. There's so many solo art festivals. I'm in a solo art group.
And the
Which is
fringe
great.
festivals and so on. So you'll have
Yeah, so I
to be able to
I
do.
want to keep it,
I'm
and I
sure
also
she's
want to keep
shining
the
down on you right now. I wish you
Yeah.
every success with that. Do you have any closing remarks other than what we've talked about?
Well, I just think if you have some sort of illness like breast cancer, it's so important to be educated, be your own advocate, but also try to find things that make you feel good and lessen anxiety. Like I had my humor, my tool chest was stand-up comedy. So I used to write jokes. And then my piano, I played piano, and that lessens anxiety.
Lovely. Well, that's great.
And I'm a 6-year survivor, and I've been doing, knock on wood, been doing well.
That's wonderful. And thank you so much. Thank you for being with us tonight. A special thank you to Ann DiNocenzio for your fine work. And I want to thank the Marsh Stream for this community service broadcast platform that benefits communities in the Bay Area and worldwide. To our audience, look for the next Solo Arts Heal Show, October 25th, hosted by Rick Davis and Ann Can, which is the peer-to-peer support group. People share their stories to empower others living with serious and chronic conditions to address their situations. Ann Can is now with us for their 3rd year on Solo Arts Heal. And you can look for more Solo Arts Heal shows select Wednesday nights on the Marsh Stream, and you'll find this and other shows already recorded on the Marsh Stream YouTube platform at themarsh.org. With thanks again to our guest, Ann DiNocenzio,
Thank you.
Marsh Stream producer Brianna Caver, and artistic director Stephanie Weisman, the Marsh marketing team, and always to our Zoom and YouTube audiences. Thanks so much for joining us. We're all in this together. See you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.